Right, and we're back for another episode of Creative Retrospective. And my guest for this one is Hamza Riaz, also known as Hams. He is the founder and editor-in-chief of MicCheque. You may know him through a lot of the posts he's made there. He's also worked alongside other, I guess, conglomerates within the UK content creation space, so to say. Yeah, so we'll get into that. Hamza, don't you worry. But yeah, for the most part, he's known for his writing articles, big pieces. So he usually does album reviews, long pieces. On My Check's been going for about 7 years now. We 7 years in July or June, I'm sorry. So first thing I want to get into, Hamza, actually, I want to kind of start, and again, I usually don't do this. I feel like I'm saying that on every episode now, but for you specifically, for most people, because hip hop's like the biggest genre, right? So most people's like, oh, they like hip hop because it was just always around. But for you come from a very like Muslim Pakistani household, right? And I remember reading, I think it was on a Day of Work article you did some years ago, right?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And you said that you did, I think you got into hip hop around like the age 11 or 12. So kind of talk more about that. What was your entry like? Was it a friend or was it a song you heard on TV? Like what got you into hip hop in the first place? Because that's quite late. At someone who's like, okay, cool. Like for example, like 12 is like right into secondary school. So yeah, so what was the change at
Yeah,
that time?
yeah. I think I remember like even before secondary. I guess my earliest memories are definitely just like hearing stuff on the radio, having like an older sibling like playing stuff, for example, or like when you're in primary school and you hear like the older kids playing something
Yeah.
after school or stuff like that. Those are
Yeah.
like the first little exposures, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I remember like just hearing stuff like this is like '08 times, and I'm hearing like Ti and stuff. That was like my
Right. Yeah.
first like exposure to like rap. I remember
Mm-hmm.
Ti hearing
Mm-hmm.
hearing I remember he was getting sentenced at the time, and
Yeah.
he was dropping these tunes like Remember Me with Mary J. Blige,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously little me and having no clue about how justice system works. I thought he's getting sentenced for life. I thought he's done. I was
Yeah.
like, them tunes got me emotional. I was like, oh man, his life's over.
Mm-hmm.
So those were the first few bits. And then I guess like once you pivot into year seven, everything changes and you get like a bigger exposure to like what's going on around you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I just started to just have like friends or people around me listening to like freestyles on like popular platforms such as SBTV at the time.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think what I gravitated towards rap so much was that like English was always my favorite subject at school. It's probably my strongest subject as well. So I think it was like a like made a matrimony type thing because
Right.
I already like the linguistic sides in school, and you have this genre that comes up and they're like bending words. They've got metaphors and similes and rhyme scheme on. So that's what made me gravitate towards rap. And also I guess like living in South London as well,
Of course.
having
Yeah.
like local artists, and you just hear, oh, those guys up in Brixton are rapping now. So you just you just end up hearing about it, and then there you go. I just started to listen from there.
Yeah. And one thing again, I just want to kind of jump on. So I'm gonna not go through the whole childhood thing. So in terms of like favorite artists and stuff like that, but from a young age, I want to know because I think you've always been very vocal of how you see hip hop, in terms of being quite objective with it. But one thing I actually want to ask you is, from I guess what age was it that you saw hip hop as competitive, or do you see hip hop as a competitive genre, in its essence?
I think I always have. I
Mm-hmm.
remember um just like from the get-go, like you see rap battles online, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and I got exposed to those early as well. Like you remember like those don't flop battles and stuff like that.
Yeah, I
So
remember those.
like they're just freestyling against each other, and that just became, when you see that at the beginning, you just think, oh, that's kind of part of the genre then. And it
Mm-hmm.
made sense. Like this guy's sending a bar, he's sending a bar back. You have diss tracks and stuff like that. I heard all of that stuff from early. So I just put two and two together and I was like, okay, rap battles are normal. This makes sense. And I was like, made the
Mm-hmm.
genre more fun in my opinion. I was like, I'm a competitive guy in spirit anyway. So
Yeah.
to hear like rappers be competitive as well, it's like the more the merrier, isn't it?
Yeah. What did you ever try your hand at rapping at some point?
Just like small freestyles in class and that, like,
Yeah.
you know, when you're like in science class
Yeah.
and stuff,
Mhm.
at the back, just like you're like freestyling with your mate and stuff, and you're trying to
Yeah.
see who can come up with the better freestyle and stuff like that. I remember just writing stuff like, oh, like, you know, like Papoose, like he does the alphabet thing, but
Oh
every
yeah,
word
that was
starts
such
with
a
the same.
popular thing in school. Yeah.
I remember doing that, but yeah, just for fun though, like nothing else really, just to see what was it saying. That's it really.
All right, cool. I think for most people, the what I'm about to say, and again, I always forget this, like kind of knowing you personally, right? For most people, this is like the end of the interview or the end of the story for most people. But for you, this is where we're going to begin. So, one thing that I don't think most
Yeah,
people know about you, Hamza, is that you were hired as a writer. I think it was for Mixtape, if I'm not mistaken. It was one of those big
I missed
platforms,
it.
correct me?
It was a GRM. It was
Sorry,
GRM.
GRM. Sorry, yeah. So, for most
Yeah,
people, it's like, yeah, I've graduated. I got a writing gig at GRM. I've made it. For you, it's like this is where it begins. So, and again, I think we'll get to why you left, but you leave this gig. So, at what time were you writing for GRM, and what was that like?
what time was that? Um, I would imagine it's like 2018, 2019 times. If I'm not
No.
mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm so bad with like dates and stuff, so I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember exactly, but
No, that's
something
fine.
like that.
Yeah.
And um, I just like just gave it a shot. Really, I was like, okay, you have these websites, like these like UK platforms. They have blogs. I was interested in becoming a writer, and at that point, I was already writing just on a little small scale private level as well, just trying my luck at reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just getting involved because I wanted to make UK rap reviews a thing, and at the time it wasn't. So I just joined them for that very reason. I was just like, okay, let's get the foot in the door type thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then let's see what happens from here. So that's kind of why I
Yeah.
started.
So when you say wasn't a thing, do you mean in a sense of like it wasn't in the kind of standard American way we got like the pitchfork and they give it like a rating and all that stuff, or was it just like yeah? What way do you mean that?
Yeah, like I feel like I don't know about this all the time because it's like if you know me, I've always banged on about the reason why I've started writing, the reason why I started MicCheque, etc. Was
Mm-hmm.
that we've never had like a hub for um well thought out, objective, thought out opinions and consensus on like UK rap albums.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was never a thing. We never had it
Mm-hmm.
documented. You know,
Yeah,
so I wanted to just kind of be the watershed moment for that and be like, okay, let's provide everyone with that space because clearly UK rap journalism is still very premature in its runtime. Yeah,
of course. Yeah.
despite all the issues it might even have at the moment. Yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
like because it's never really had that established thing, it's like okay, someone needs to be the gateway for that. So
Mm-hmm.
let's give it a go. And like you
Mm-hmm.
said, like the pitchforks, the Rolling Stones and stuff, I just thought we need to have our UK equivalent to that.
Mm-hmm.
So that in 10 years time when like the young G's are like coming up and they want to find out about the classic albums, they can look online and lo and behold they find something and it's got credibility behind it because
Right.
someone reviewed it, you know.
Mm-hmm. And did you not feel like you could have done both simultaneously? So in terms of like writing for that, did you not feel like at the time, okay, within GRM, I could be this person and maybe that's how I build my name? Because I guess taking the road less traveled in terms of building MicCheque and you gotta start your own platform. In terms of like being with GRM, did you just feel like it was too much of a roadblock? Like, what was the kind of factors that made you decide, okay, I'm gonna do this by myself?
Yeah, so like I think the actually yeah, now it's coming back to me all now. To be fair,
Mm-hmm.
like I wasn't even at GRM for that long. To be fair, it
Mm-hmm.
was probably like half a year, like 6 7 months or stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like my role was a blog contributor.
Right.
So the way it worked was you'd have like obviously I reached out to the let's get you to contribute to the website to the blog, and what they would do is they would dish out certain articles for you to write. So they have certain topics, whatever was going on in the current news cycle in music.
Right. Okay.
They
I see what you mean. Yeah.
and let's say obviously GRM they would upload videos daily. So what they wanted the writers to do was they wanted to have at least one article that was talking about at least one of the uploads that they did. Um, so they'd be like, okay, in the morning they'd say, okay, who's available to write about this, that. Then they dish out the titles to everyone. Then you try dish out 3 or 4 articles in the week and stuff. So you had to reach a certain quota.
Right. Okay. So it was less
And
about the individual in that aspect.
yeah, it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to be fair, the more I did it, the more I was like, there's not much flexibility here for you to write what you actually want to write about. Because like, I did not join to be writing about, oh, let so and so put out a new music video. Like, what's the fun in that? What's the commentary involved in that? Like, it's just dead.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to get stuck in that cycle of doing that. And I realized early on, I was like, for me, it's like, I can't, if my heart's not in something, then I'm not gonna just force it,
Of
no
course.
matter what the stature is or whether like the progression could be good and stuff. So I was like, you know what, I'm just sat here writing news articles. This is dry.
Yeah.
Let me just go focus on my thing.
Yeah, fair. And did you ever consider kind of writing for any other? I know mistakenly said mixtape. Did you ever consider
Yeah.
writing for any other platforms?
You know what, I did think about it afterwards, but I was like, I'll probably just end up in the same cycle of it, because I know the way, obviously I've done my research. I know that all these UK rap platforms, they have a similar structure to the way their blogs work. It's 90% news, and then if you are like closer to the editor, then you might get a chance to write a little review or a little list, or have some autonomy in what you write about. But if you're new fish, if you're little fish, then I've like, nah, man, I'm not gonna spend years and years grinding out of place and then like, get rewarded with it by writing something I actually want to write about. Like, I just wanted some control at the end of the day.
And I think from an editor-in-chief point of view, I can kind of sympathize a little bit why to do it, because I think even though it's not that long ago, it's still kind of a thing where a lot of the revenue that comes through like websites like this is through like ads, right? So how many people click on this website and how many people like, the click-through rate and all that stuff. So for them, it's like, what are the articles that are going to make you click this thing? Not really, what is the thing? And I know there has to be a balance, but I think for like a big kind of website like GRM or MicCheque or Link Up to kind of exist, not only do they need to put a shit ton of ads in their sites, and they need to have a reason for you to click through onto those sites. So you do need a bit of element for that to kind of stay afloat. So I guess in a little bit I sympathize with that, but I guess I agree with you. And from a creation point of view, it's like, man, there's really sick idea. And it's like, no, you're gonna talk about Skepta's top 5 albums. It's like, oh, come on, man. You're just killing me right now. Like, do you know what I mean? Especially if the thing that you're suggesting could be something that's the big thing. You could be like the pioneer or the flagship for that. And I guess when you're young, you think you're pioneer of everything. I get that. But, it's good to have a shot in these things once in a while. So we move on. And again, most people don't do this, Hamza. I don't know if you know this, but you start your own website, not even like a whole website at 20 years old. So I don't you know today as MicCheque. And again, this is like, I think it's one thing, especially now, it's so much easier to make a website. You have like Squarespace, and some people do like little WordPress stuff. You had a full-blown website. Talk to me about what the vision was in terms of MicCheque. I think we talked about this a little bit in terms of you wanted to bridge the gap between UK and US hip hop and R&B talk, because for a long time, again, for context for people who aren't as familiar, there wasn't really a lot of connection between the two, or there wasn't people doing both. So I think MicCheque, I'm assuming MicCheque was one of those initiatives where you're like, okay, I want to be a platform for both, because it's usually platforms who just do American music or platforms who just do UK music. But I guess in particular, I want to know, okay, so what was the motivations behind MicCheque, and why embark on such a massive kind of project alone?
Firstly, 100%, like there wasn't really, I say really, there wasn't at all like a UK platform that was trying to just talk about rap as a totality. There was that segregation to it. And me being a fan of both scenes, I was like, I kind of, and this has always been the motto, the motto of the website. It is bridging the UK rap scene with hip hop. And like I wanted to do that because firstly, I'm just into both genres, and I always had that vision of, when people say, oh yeah, the UK needs to break through America, we need to like get heard from the other side of the pond. I just thought this is probably the best way of creating a niche audience that care about both. And the more I've done it, the more I've seen people like, let's say people like yourself who are into both scenes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I just thought I'm hitting a niche market here. Like,
Yeah.
I thought about it, like you said, it sounds like a grand idea at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, but I jumped into it because I like I told you, if I'm jumping into something, I'm gonna do it properly. That's always been
Mm-hmm.
my motto in life.
Mm-hmm.
So when I did it, I was like, it's not gonna be some small time blog thing. I need to make it look sleek. I need to make it look professional. And I've known that from like I've had blogging experience with other stuff.
Of
So
course, yeah.
going into when I was doing this, I know exactly the way I need it to be. And at the time I was in uni as well. So I had some I just needed like a passion project at the same time. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I need an outlet for my opinion.
No.
So yeah, I had people around me that I could talk to about, but it's never really the same when you want to go into the nitty gritty and you're just way more dense with it,
Yeah.
you know. So partly it was for my own satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly was to kind of hit that market, and um, I'm just like independency's in my blood as well. So I was like, I don't really need to do this with anyone. I know what the vision is.
Mm-hmm.
And if other people join the team along the way, then that's great. But
Of course.
I knew exactly the way I wanted to do it, and I wasn't afraid to tackle it alone. I was like, that's a challenge, and let's see if I can do it. And then like
Mm-hmm.
7 years later, I'm still doing it. So, you know, proofs in the pudding type thing.
Yeah, of course. And one of the most interesting things about MicCheque when it started out, and I think this is something that I'm going to touch on throughout the whole of this interview, is that your writing style was very different to what it is now. For anyone who's kind of like a fan of writing, you should go and check this out because from when I kind
I
of
hear this.
yeah, so from when I kind of like came in contact with your music, and also sidebar, one of the first conversations we had was about bridging this gap. I think it was something on Twitter. I was like, oh, like I think we were kind of talking about, oh yeah, whoever kind of figures it out, you know, we really successful. You're like, yeah, you're right, and I think that's how we connected. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think at the time where I kind of came across your work, it was, again, like you said, it was very professional. It was kind of like, you know, it's hitting all the main points of the album or the topic at hand, and you're giving a rating and your favorite songs and stuff like that. So very similar to what we know from like a Complex or Pitchfork or Rolling Stone or whatever. But going back to 2017, a lot of your things were kind of like, it's still journalism, but it's more like think pieces, right? And you're a lot more candid. Like I think so. One of your first ever articles was talking about like, here's why DJ Khaled's album is just way too long or some shit like that. Right? Yeah. And the way you were, I was like, I can't believe this is Hamza, mate. Like, and you know, and I really enjoy people who write like that because not always has to be like objective and you know you gotta kind of be like a certain way. Like you're kind of just insert yourself into the writing, which I think is a skill that's not really appreciated. But I guess my question is, why did you start doing less of that? Like, what made you kind of change that style across time?
I just started cringing at the old stuff, man. Like I just you know, it happens all the time. But I think the main thing was that like writing as a concept, yeah, writing is tough. Like let's get it straight. You know, it's not easy to articulate a certain thought that you might have in a succinct way, yeah. So when I was first starting, I guess I was a bit younger, firstly, so I hadn't really established a writing style, and I was just kind of saying what came to mind type thing. And then with more experience, I guess I just like would be reading other music platforms, and I'm just like developing my style as a result from that. And yeah, I guess the pivot came because I did want to kind of, I think it just evolved naturally because I found, you know, when you've said something in a certain way, and then you've kind of quote unquote mastered it type thing.
Yeah,
Now
I get what you're saying.
okay,
yeah,
I'm kind of done with the way I used to do this. Now I need to evolve basically. I feel like if I had just one writing style, then I wouldn't really, would I really rate myself as a writer? You know?
Okay, so what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, so it was kind of like that. And it was like, again, I did want to just move away and try a different type of form. Now I've got to a stage where I feel like some of my more recent work is like a hybrid of the two. And I might switch between certain paragraphs. And now I'm trying to go back to that essence a little bit of that extra candid nature, but making sure I'm just a bit more brief with it.
Yeah, not as like off the hinges of it. Yeah.
It was a bit unhinged. No
yes,
it was.
I'm off of it to be honest, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah, Yeah,
Yeah.
but it just you just realize as a writer that there is certain categories of writing.
Yeah, of course.
And I was like, okay, let me try this other category and let me dip back in that a little bit some other way.
Hmm.
So yeah, just part of the journey in it as a writer.
Of course. And speaking of writing, one of your longtime collaborators on MicCheques is Alex, well, also known as Dreams by Cole, if you've seen them
Yeah,
on
Alex.
Instagram and
Yeah,
stuff like
big
that.
up,
And
big up, Alex.
again, see again with the bridging the whole theme, UK to here, US theme. He's not from the UK, he's somewhere in America, I believe.
Yeah, he's West
Yeah,
Coast
so
based.
yeah, so and then he covers most of the underground stuff that's covered on your channel. So how did this relationship come about between you and Alex?
Yeah, so it's one of my favorite stories, man. So like,
Mhm.
um, everyone always has like a lockdown story,
Of
right?
course, yeah.
But at least for me, like the inception of MicCheque was pre-lockdown and
Hmm.
pre-COVID.
Hmm.
But around lockdown time, I started to develop the Instagram to MicCheque.
Right, okay.
And this was where I was just developing the social media side of the website. Um, and then this was at a time, and obviously everyone's trying to find something to do. So I remember just trying to like spread the word about the website on the IG, and then I just stumbled into hip hop Instagram. You know, I
Right.
just stumbled into HHIG that I found hundreds and hundreds of accounts that are reviewing rap albums, ranking stuff. Like there was a massive community there.
Hmm.
And then I stumbled into it, I joined it, and then Alex was one of the who had a page and was just talking about his favorite rap albums, his favorite
Hmm.
artists, and we just gravitated to each other because we both vibed with each other. We had like a good spirit. We were
Hmm.
supporting each other's posts, and at that time in the community, everyone would just share each other's posts and just
Yeah.
comment and stuff like that. So yeah, we built a connection from there, and then he didn't write for a long time. Actually, it was never like in contention until
Hmm.
we both had the same idea. He said it. He was like, "Oh, can I write for MicCheque?" And I was like,
Hmm.
I was actually thinking about asking you this. So it
Oh,
was like
nice.
a simultaneous thing. Um, and then yeah, like you said, he covers the more like underground American stuff, like the Griselda stuff and whatnot. So it just made sense. And I was like, if I am gonna have someone by my side helping with MicCheque, it needs to be someone that knows their stuff. And let me tell you that he knows his shit. So I was
Hmm.
like, okay, you got your stripes. You're also a
Hmm.
capable writer. I've seen you put in the work on your Instagram as well.
Hmm.
And then thirdly, he had the drive, man. He loves the genre, so
Hmm.
it made sense.
Yeah. And that kind of leads on to one of my next topics, right? Because in terms of like knowing your shit and stuff like that. So I think one of the things that's kind of been an ever raging debate within like the music sphere, especially within this country, is kind of like the way we kind of attack the way they kind of attack music or rap in general. So I guess for you, one thing I just want to pick your brain on, this is just kind of a personal interest, is when it comes to hip hop as well, so much emphasis is based on history, right? I think more so than any other genre. Like if I say Dua Lipa is the best, no one's gonna be like, oh, but did you not know this pop artist from 1974? No one ever says
Yeah,
that. No one does
yeah,
it. No one ever contextualizes it in that way. But when it comes to hip hop, it's like, how could you say this guy's the best when Run DMC were doing this in the 80s? What the fuck are you talking about? So I guess for you, so I think there's definitely when it comes to the hip hop reviewer, there's a lot more burden on history and like going back and like either taking in context of things that happened at the time or like I guess just looking back at old interviews and stuff like that. So how much emphasis would you put to that? Like for someone to be like a true like reviewer of hip hop, how like is history or going back an important part of that?
100%, man. Like I can't lie, I'm old school with it. Like
Okay.
call me old school, whatever. Call me a gatekeeper, whatever
Hmm.
you want. Yeah, but I just feel like you said, like it's not with this historian thing isn't with
Hmm.
every genre, but that's
Yeah.
what makes hip hop so special because
Hmm.
not it's not like any other genre, and it
Right.
does have its own space in history, and it values its history. Like
Hmm.
history is taught as a degree, so clearly history is important in some
Hmm.
ways.
Yeah.
So why would it not matter for like a music genre? You
Hmm.
know, I think if someone is going to talk about something. Let's say, for example, everyone's like not everyone, but a lot of people they're trying to be like the modern content creator nowadays. Yeah. Let's say you're like a
Yeah.
modern music content
Hmm.
creator, you're doing videos and that's your thing, yeah. And you're talking and let's say if you establish that you just want to talk about current music, cool, be my guest. But if you are going to tap into like the rich nature of the genre, which is the GOAT conversations, the all-time this, the all-time that, that's part of conversation. I don't care who you are, yeah. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry, you have to know your stuff, yeah. Otherwise, I'm not gonna. How can I value your thoughts and your opinions? And this is the word, like the credibility part comes into it. When I'm reading a rap review, I like to hear context around like an artist, for example. Let's say a review is starting off with, oh, so and so put out X amount of albums and they got signed in this year. This tells me that you know your shit and you know what you're talking about. So therefore, I'm gonna add value into what you say now. But if you don't show that you know what you're talking about, then how can I really value it? Like it's like I just said the history degree, for example. Yeah, if I'm going to a uni lecture and then this guy's a qualified, or let's say he's a lecturer, yeah, but he doesn't know what he's talking about. He ain't got a Scooby snack. Yeah, he's just there reading off a book like, yeah, so 1953, so and so, yeah, and then you ask him a question and he's like, well, I don't know. I want to walk out that room, bro. What am
That's
I
a good
paying for?
analogy. That's a good analogy. Yeah.
Like, I'm not wasting my time here. Like, I'm gonna go find a different lecturer. So it's the same thing, man. That's the way I see it. You need to know your stuff.
And I think the main like point of like misunderstanding I'll say with people is that, and I see this with so many other forms of competition or art or media, is that no one ever wants to say the following statement where it's like, I don't know the answer to that question in terms of all time. I only know based on what I've seen during my lifetime, right? So this happens in football, this happens in basketball, this happens in NFL, all that stuff. It's like, because they want it. I think part of the human experience is believing the time you live in now was the best of times, right? So LeBron has to be the GOAT. Brady has to be the GOAT. Kendrick has to be the GOAT. You know what I mean? It's all right now. Nothing ever like Maradona ain't shit. Larry Bird ain't shit. Do you know what I mean? Or like, you know what I mean? It's not nothing like that. Or like Montana. Or like, it's not that. It's all biased, right? And I think I think because of the pride that comes with saying all the time and like the kind of being so definitive, is like people don't want to let go of their ego with that and just be like, okay, no, I know this all the time. And maybe, I've looked into a little things here and there about Run DMC or Wu-Tang, but no, it's not better than Kendrick, because I think people think everything just evolves over time. Like everything is better than what it was before. Everything's harder to do. Everything's more complex. So therefore, I don't even need to look at what happened in the past, which is something I've always kind of struggled with myself when people talk about it. I'm like, well, it's definitely not nothing. Or I think people never consider the fact that if these people existed now with what we had now, would they be even better than what we think they are? Like, imagine Outkast with all them advancements in music in 2024. Imagine they started now. Like, who knows what they could have done, right? So I fully understand you on that one. In terms of your articles, right? So one of your big articles, again, it kind of leads in as well, is one of your main articles when you first started out was about mumble rap. Talking about the purpose.
The archives, man. Archives, bro.
So I gotta do my research. So with this one, it was about kind of its purpose within hip hop. Is it fun? Or like, I think essentially you were basically saying, yeah, maybe the content isn't as great. Maybe the beats are just good, but maybe there's some value to it. Or maybe if you just kind of meet it where it's at, then you can just enjoy it. However, in my opinion, your blind spot with this is Future, right? One of your favorite artists. So tell me, what is it about Future that kind of deviates from this kind of normal kind of bucket of mumble rap? Again, I think nowadays in hip hop terms, mumble rap is like a slur term. No one really says that anymore. But at the time, it was such a raging thing. But okay, what is it about Future that kind of makes him deviate from this genre, and Young Thug in this context?
Oh, like I can barely remember the article. Firstly, I remember writing it, and I know some of the points, but I'll just look at it from a fresh perspective. I guess.
Of course,
like, like with Future and Thug, for example, my journey wasn't always positive. Firstly, that I was just at the beginning of like, when Thug was coming out saying, what is he saying? I can't understand a single word. Like, what's this? SpongeBob SquarePants, this, that. Like, I didn't know. I didn't have a clue, right? And then with Future, it was a similar thing as well, right? But I think what made me understand is what made me deviate from the whole mumble rap term and stuff was that once I got used to the accent I can hear clear cut what they're saying.
Right, of
You know,
course.
and that was the issue with a lot of people at the time. You know, the Atlanta scene, we like people like Outkast, like Andre and Big Boy, they didn't really rap like that, despite being from Atlanta.
Mm.
But these new guys coming on, I had to get used to the dialect, and when my ears got trained to understand, they actually are saying words.
Yeah,
Like it might be a bit nonsensical here and there,
yeah.
but they are saying words, and I think the kind of the genesis moment was like, or the breakthrough moment was that
Mm.
I just found it funny, man. Like
Mm-hmm.
I found the humor in it, and like I'm so grateful that I did, because I could have been such a prude about it and been like, like what's, I don't get it. Like, it's all that. But when Thug says something hysterical or just off the wall, he's being funny. Like he's being a comedian in the bars. You're supposed to find it funny, man. You're
Of
not supposed
course.
to take it seriously. So when I had that moment with both of them and others, I was like I just saw the fun in it. And I was like, they're just having fun. And I see how they use their voice as an instrument as well, which is why I understood that they are creating something different here. And
Right.
I think what we struggle in hip hop is allowing something to evolve and knowing when something's evolving. And we're very quick to discredit something if it's not touching the traditionalist values, aka it's not lyrical. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But once I realized that this is something brand new and this is something super unique, I just gravitated towards it. And I think Future's longevity says it all.
Right, of course.
His voice is just, everyone just emulates him. And
Mm-hmm.
then there must be something to that. If someone's emulating an artist, like dozens of artists are trying to copy him and trying to sound something, there's something there.
Mm-hmm.
I got DS2 right there actually on my vinyl wall.
Yeah.
So, you can tell I'm a big Future fan for a reason. And he's one of the goats in this, man.
Mm-hmm. Of course. And switching gears a little bit in terms of your content, again, I think obviously starting out, you're a lot more US based. So then there was definitely a pivot towards UK music, or again, kind of meeting that balance between the two. And again, one artist I found like particularly interesting was, and again, this ties in with the history thing that you just said when you were talking about the forgotten era of UK rap. So this was from like 2021 or something like that. What inspired this piece, or what made you want to kind of go back to a lot of these legends? And I think what's the hardest part about UK rap in particular, and maybe this is why I probably wouldn't even market it myself, is that there's no discography. Like the way you kind of rate UK rappers is not by discography, especially if you're talking about anything before 2014, if I'm being completely honest. Yes, there was albums, but that was not how UK artists even got their notoriety. It was through freestyles. That was the main way. Even Stormzy himself was through Shut Up, right? Biggest freestyle and became who he is today. So yeah, what inspired this piece, and what were you looking for when kind of like shouting out these greats from the forgotten era?
Yeah, man. That's one of my favorite articles, man. And
Mm-hmm.
when I wrote it, I was in a super nostalgic space. I remember probably just went down a rabbit hole of listening to these rappers just at random.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the rappers in there I've mentioned were like Joe Black, Squeaks, Benny Banks, who else did I
Low-key.
mention? And Loki was in there, English
Mm-hmm.
Frank was in there,
Yep.
and I'm just like, firstly, because I've just felt so nostalgic, I wanted to talk about these artists that I grew up on.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, they are relatively underground as well, and I've never seen their flowers given in too much in the journalistic space.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the third reason why I had to write it. I was like, I haven't seen an article like this myself. Let me just go handle it, And I've seen bits and bobs here and there, like Complex do some stuff. I know Trench are really good at doing those nostalgic pieces as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I really wanted to just put my perspective on it and add my little format to it. And like you mentioned discography and stuff, how there's a lack of it. I really wanted to try create a little bit of a discography. So I mentioned in the article, oh, they released this mixtape.
Yeah.
This had,
Mm-hmm.
and
This
then
many
in this
views and
year,
stuff like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was trying to put the pieces together because these guys don't really have like Wikipedia articles and
Mm-hmm.
references to cite it. So I really had another goal of this article was that like this can be a reference point now.
Mm-hmm.
This can be a citation. If someone else in the future is trying to find out about these rappers,
Mm-hmm.
they can use this article as a reference point.
Mm-hmm.
and that was like multiple goals with the article, and I was
Mm-hmm.
happy with the way it came out, and I really wanted to remind people that these guys are important to the
Mm-hmm.
scene. And like me being a historian, I wanted to document that, have that embedded in history, and like be on that first page of Google if you're looking at UK rap era and you really want to find out the history. You know, that's why I take pride in the most, like knowing that I wrote something that is part of history and can get referenced in that way is like
Mm-hmm.
probably the most endearing part about writing anything.
Yeah. And then let me just touch on that a bit more in terms of what do you think. And again, this is answer this any way you want, Hamza. But what do you think is kind of missing from modern UK writing, such that these things kind of just go by the wayside? Like, why is it that one guy from Southeast London is doing these reviews? Why haven't these been done for the years before? Like, do you feel like there's just a more of an emphasis or focus on highlighting other parts of rappers' discography? What do you think is missing?
I think a lot of people don't know how to write about those eras because maybe the knowledge ain't there. Firstly,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like
It's a lot harder to bullshit something like because you actually have to be there and know what you're looking for, right?
you have to be. Excuse me, like you have to be there, and if you weren't, it's hard to find information about it. Like we said,
Mm-hmm.
so the reason why it's lacking is because we don't have those profiles in the journalism space that that know about this stuff. So if you aren't able to find it, you need to really just do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's lacking the most is that just knowledgeable people who really want to write about it. Like I know there's a few definitely for sure, but I think that's the main thing, man. Like no one wants to. Let's say firstly, if you don't have the knowledge, let's say you have the knowledge actually,
Mm-hmm.
great, but you might not be a writer. So you
Of
need
course,
both.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I know there's a lot of like pages. Like there's the Metal Messiah page. He's like a grime head. He posts like on Instagram and Twitter like historical grime stuff. But that's his way of archiving the scene. But if you ask him to write an article, maybe he's not an article guy. Again, I can't speak to that. Maybe they are.
Mm-hmm.
But you need both of those reference points. You need both of those things in your artillery. And that's such a rare thing, like to find. So that's why you don't really see it because you need to be a double threat in that regard.
Mm-hmm. And then again, that leads to the mega article that you released towards the end of 2022, where you did this complete massive, like, again, for people who are just fans of writing and history,
Yeah.
you do this this is probably one of my favorite pieces of yours, where you go through every UK rap classic from kind of start to end. Again, with something like this, again, because I think one thing that you did that, again, if people who know from the Vinyl Collective, I know they're going to appreciate this, where you literally list out each one, whether it's a mixtape or an album and all this, like you really go into the weeds of every single one. How long did it take to compile such an enormous mega piece?
Bro, that's my magnum opus, man. Can't lie.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my it's my favorite article for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It took like over 2 years, man. I was grinding out just the list first. So basically on the website draft, I had just a drafted article and I just had a numbered. So I had a numbered list. And this is the way I started it. I just had a numbered list and I was like, okay, let me just list all the classics that have been verified throughout UK rap history. Cool. Do that. And I must have had like at least 50 at that point. And then I was like, okay, most of these are mixtapes. Let's go through the albums. So I did that. And then I just made sure that every time I was looking back at that list, yeah, because let's say I would add to the list in January, and then I'd go back to it in March, and then I'd keep doing that. And every time I went back to that list, I was like, this ain't finished, man.
Right.
I can't start this, but I can't start the writing, like physical writing, every single project about until I feel like it's finished.
Mm-hmm.
As a list, because I was like, again, I told you that something needs to be credible. It needs to have that substance to it. So it took me at least 2 years to realize that, okay, I'm happy with this list now.
And what's the total number? I was just looking at, is it over 100 or is it 100?
It's over 100. It's like 130-ish. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, to be fair, like a lot of people might not even think we have 130 classics.
Exactly.
Which is why which is why it was important for me to make a distinction in that article that you have the mainstream classics, you have the alternative classics, you have the underground classics. And the feedback from the article told me a lot as well, because there are different rap communities that people don't know about, that the people who care about that. There's the UK boom bap scene, like there's people there. You just don't see, they just don't have the loudest voice on Twitter. That's
Of course.
the only reason you don't hear about them. So when I heard people saying, "Oh, but you missed out this, that," or "I love the fact that you included Lewis Parker's Masquerades and Silhouettes from the 90s. I love the fact that you put Derek B, Bullet from a Gun on there, So having those pieces to the puzzle, man, it's just like everything felt complete. It was such a full circle moment. And it took a lot of work, man. So I'm glad it came out the way it did.
And the obvious question is, for Hamza, what is Hamza's favorite UK rap album of all time? And why?
Man. No, I always think about this stuff and I'm like, is this the one? Like, when you have that in mind, it's such a niche pick, I can't lie. It is like the one that sticks with me the most is Low Key Soundtrack to the Struggle. Came out in 2011. I got a signed copy of the CD as well. And the reason why it's that one is that I think production wise, it's on another level. I think it broke boundaries in terms of typical beat making, and it had these like, it had Lauryn Hill samples, it had these like strings, it had these like soulful elements. It just combines every great element of UK rap and hip hop into one. And lyrically, it's out of this world. Subject matter, it's like touches on so many things, like family, upbringing, the political conscious side as well, of things, and it all packed together, man. It just felt like such a complete album. But besides that, probably like Home Sweet Home by Kano as well.
Of course,
ones.
Always a good one.
Yeah, those two, I'd say.
Okay, so I kind of want to move on now to a post. I'm going to call it the post MicCheque world, because I think for people who are kind of a bit more attuned to your stuff, you haven't been releasing as much writing content as you were before. It kind of feels like you're taking a different direction. But before that, I want to kind of get into kind of the wider scene in general, because this is something that's always interested me. So in terms of the UK content creation, we touched on it again with your entry at GRM and stuff like that. But you've always been quite vocal on the socials in terms of like, I guess there does lack a bit of a brotherhood or some sort of community within content creators. That's not to say that, oh, they need to be best friends or anything like that, but it does seem like there's definitely some sort of resistance to people making content and stuff like that. And I think so on a couple episodes ago when I was speaking to Sillah, and he was kind of talking about this, he was touching on this a little bit as well, where he feels like a lot of people are just saying stuff to kind of ascend through the hierarchy, because they know there's going to be certain people who just say, oh, unless you do this, or unless you say things this way, or unless you say nice things about me. And I think that extends even to the reviewers. It's not even just the artists. I mean, people always forget that. Yeah. So if you criticize a writer's article, and I get it, you write the article and that's your baby in some way. But if you criticize people even once, even if it's valid, like well thought out criticism, they're just like, well, so when it comes to anything that I can kind of like give you leverage on, I'm just not going to do it. So I think you're kind of in that school. Also myself, where it's like you are quite well known within the scene, but you don't feature on a lot of content. So have you ever experienced yourself in terms of like kind of resistance in terms of getting your article out there? Because again, like with a mega piece like what you just described, that should be something that's kind of sold to like a Complex UK or a link up, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I did show it to the Complex lot, and I was like told that it's a good article and stuff like that. But like I didn't think that I had to shop it round type thing, because I was like, I want it on my platform type thing. I just wanted it for myself, and I was like, I'd rather it be like a breakthrough moment for MicCheque as a whole, rather than just like sort it off to someone else.
Yeah.
And like I think with just the journalism and stuff like that, it's like I think when you are stating opinions and stuff, like for example, like yeah, you say that maybe I should be featuring in different platforms and stuff. The opportunities just haven't come in it, and like maybe I don't kiss the right asses and stuff, but like like it is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly fine with like I get my opinion out a lot, and like
Yeah.
you can get me into the hot waters as well. But like I stand on it, man, and things that I can't help it.
Yeah.
Like I have to say things as they should be said, and I'm willing to hold that, like I hold the weight on my back as a result of it, because I can take it. Because before skills, talent, knowledge come into play, it's all about who you are. It's all about your personality and how you're built.
Right.
Yeah. And like, let's say for example, you said something like someone could critique my article, for example. Yeah. But the average person, the average human being, forget music, the average human being can't compartmentalize certain things. They can't compartmentalize the fact that okay, someone can like okay, have a critique about your article, but you can still be friends. Like you can still, you don't have to, you don't have to, you can still have a good relationship with that person. Like it doesn't have to affect anything at all. It's all up to you and your ego, and how your ego can be tamed. And throughout my whole life, I've been taught this in the house, man. Like I was brought up to not let your ego be shown. You have to tame that. So that's the approach I have with stuff, and that's why I mess with certain people like Sillah, for example, because he's exactly like that. He's wired to the point where you can have a candid conversation, you can have critiques about each other, and at the end of the day, you both align because like your traits match up. But everything else after that makes sense, and then everything works out. But yeah, man, like I think there's so many different avenues that I could take, and maybe it's all about timing and stuff like that as well. Who knows, man?
Yeah, and again, speaking of Sillah is someone who's spoken about you in high regard. Almost every single time I've spoken to him, like on camera and off camera. Conversely, I'll ask you the same thing because you also seem to be a big fan of him. What is it about Sillah? Because again, Sillah gets cooked now again. Like it happens to him as well. But what is it about Sillah's kind of form of content creation? Because again, he's not a writer himself. And I'm sure he would say. But what is it about Sillah's kind of form of journalism that appeals to you?
Like he just reminds me of myself type thing, He has like I said, at the beginning of this conversation, we were talking about historians and people knowing their stuff. He, out of everyone in this content space in the UK rap scene, he knows his stuff, and it goes beyond just UK. He knows the UK stuff, he knows the US stuff, and that's why I relate to him, because I feel like I have the same type of wavelength as well, But I guess like it's just the way he likes to articulate his opinion as raw and honestly as possible as well. And I'm like, okay, I see that. I try to do the same thing as well. So when you have someone like that who's able to have that charisma on camera as well, because he can do that as well. Fair enough that if like
he's very charismatic.
And that's why the knowledge comes first, man. The knowledge and personality comes first. Whatever format you want to take to present that is up to your discretion.
Yeah.
Mine happens to be writing, his happens to be on camera, and he's great at it. And like you can tell when he's bringing people at SAS on the block report to have a conversation with them, man. Like some people don't even know. Most people don't.
Yeah, most people don't know what that is. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
So what can I do besides salute that? And that's why we need more people like that. We need more people who know their stuff and can articulate it in a very like professional manner like he can.
Of course. And again, kind of the last kind of thing about like writing, in terms of current writers, is there anyone, because you're getting shout out in terms of like content creation, but is there any writers, because again, as a writer yourself, is there anyone that you kind of look to and be like, okay, no, they're doing good work within the scene?
I try to stay tapped into two people. Firstly, it's Yemi from Rhymes Like Dimes Pod.
Okay, yeah.
He does writing for Trench and Complex.
Yes.
And again, like I just like the way he is another historian in that element. So every time he's whether it's on his pod or whether he's writing for Trench, I'm tapped in. Because again, it's someone whose opinion I can respect, who's knowledgeable, etc. Someone else who takes like a really historian approach is also Naz from Nurum.
Yep.
I like the way that her ethos is also to do with being an archivist, like an archivist, the way you say it, and just making sure that stuff is being documented. Because we don't have those type of people anymore. Like back in the day, we had Risky Roads and stuff like that, you know. But nowadays, I think in the journalistic space, we need to be that Risky Roads. We need to be those types of people, and just trying to make sure we're kind of sharing that knowledge across all these different spaces. So, and I wish there were more writers, man. At the moment, I'm sorry if I'm forgetting anyone, but I just really want to see more people trying to write or just state your opinion as well. I just want to see knowledgeable people talk about rap. That's what I care about. I don't care what format it comes in, just as long as you're doing it. Like that's what I want to see.
Boom. And again, that kind of goes back to you, because I think as of recent, you've kind of had a bit of a departure from just doing the writing. What was the motivation behind it? Do you just kind of feel like, you know what, this kind of format of article, review, rating was getting a bit repetitive, or it was just be kind of like spitballing? Like what, or would you just want to kind of change your pace?
So many factors, man. Like change your pace is one thing. Trying something else. Also the time that it takes to write as well, it's a lot, man. Like it strains you. I was going through a lot of writer's block as well last year. Really unable to articulate something the way I wanted it to sound. To someone else, like I might have wrote a few drafts. Like there's reviews that I started on and I never finished it because I just didn't like the way they were going. And I got into a space where I don't know whether it was like an insecurity thing or whether like I was just getting rusty.
Okay.
Maybe a bit of both. But there was that, and then I was like, as well, unfortunately, no one's really reading like that anymore as well. Which is like that's what makes my heart sink the most, because like it's something that when your heart's in it, but it's not getting the as much of an audience as it should, then you kind of have to start thinking, and you have to reallocate your resources.
Of course.
And I'm just trying to be a bit smarter with it. Like writing is still something I'm still going to do, but it's going to be in different formats, and it's going to be in ways that makes for like an article format. Like you said, like there's ads and stuff and whatnot, so it needs to make sense in that format. And then any other format, whether I'm going visually and stuff, I just want to make sure I'm again unlocking a new skill is what I want to do.
Of course,
while still making sure MicCheque's still thriving. Like that's always going to be there in some way, shape, or form.
Of course. I think just as you said that, one thing that just tickled me, because again, I was speaking to Sillah, and then he was like, so, you know, some people just can't read. And just the way he said it,
he's not wrong.
Yeah. And to be honest, I think all forms of content creation are facing that kind of epidemic where it's like, I think people just want things to be quicker and quicker and quicker. So even long form content like this, mate, like it's not going to be the most popular thing in the world, because people are just used to like, give me all the knowledge. Because the thing is, the desire for knowledge is still at all-time high, but the kind of time spent to acquire it is at all-time low. Like people do not want to spend any like a second extra to gain the content that they wish to gain. So it's kind of like a weird game where people playing. It's like, okay, do I just kind of like condense these down to like a 2-minute short? Like what am I meant to do? There's only so much I can say in like 5 minutes. Do you know what I mean? But in terms of things, one thing they do read Hamza, sorry, are your tweets. And that's and again, it kind of been in a post MicCheque world, mate. There's been a few times where your tweets have kind of caused public stir. I'll start with a big one. I'm not going to bury the lead on this one. We're going to go straight into it. So the one that you kind of got a lot of heat for was last year when J Hus released his third album that you called crucial, right? You used the curse word of saying it was a crucial third album.
C word.
Yeah, not the C word. So, to be honest, I thought your tweet was pretty inoffensive as far as like some like tweets go. If I was me, it's just a tweet. It's not like it was an official statement. Like, hear ye. I don't call J Hus. It was just a tweet on your personal account. But for some reason, this is one of the this I checked it before this episode. It has over 250,000 impressions, mate. This is insane. I don't even know how many followers you have, but that is fucking insane. So this was something that was like it caused an absolute rampant. I'm pretty sure your mentions were absolutely insane with this. So what was it? Let's talk to me through this one. What was it about? What do you think it was about what you tweeted about J Hus's album just not being up to date that kind of brought people up the wrong way?
The fact that I didn't say that album was a 10 out of 10, really. It's not about what I said, it's what about what I didn't say. Like, I think that's the way I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't say what people wanted me to say, or I didn't say what was expected of me from one of the most lauded and respected artists in the UK rap scene.
Yes.
You know? And it got picked apart in different ways. Like you said, like the word crucial got brought up. I had people saying, "Oh, why does the third album have to be crucial? I've never heard that be a concept in hip hop." Well, really? Are you sure? Like let's look throughout history, man.
Yeah, I know it tickles.
Let's do it. We could cover so many artists if you want to do that. We can do that all day. So again, I had to fight that battle. I had to explain why it is crucial. I also had to break down the production element when I was mentioning there's no J5 on the project. A lot of people, some people did agree with that, but some people were also saying how, TSP done a great job as well. So I had to like talk about that side too. And what else was it like? I said so much stuff in that tweet. So, but that was always my aim. I was like, okay, if I'm gonna critique this J Hus album, it's gonna be a foolproof tweet. You know what I'm saying? Like, as a writer myself, I know how to compose something like that. So, like
no trap cards.
Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? People got the tomatoes, I got the flamethrower, man. That's the way I look at it. Like they get chucked, I'm just dashing it back, and yeah, man, like, it was an interesting discourse. I'm happy it created discourse because I think at the end of the day, I don't care if people agree or disagree. Like it created discourse and it created an important conversation that needed to be had that no one was doing at the time.
I think what kind of brought people to, I think, again, just kind of watching from a third person perspective, because I was like, oh, thank God it's not me today. In terms of the getting cooked, I think what for me, what people the wrong way, it was like the first time there was like a full disillusionment of who J Hus is. And J Hus is a good artist, there's no doubt about that. But I think he was kind of seen as the guy who could do no wrong. And I think your tweet was the first time, I guess, especially when people have been, like, this is one of the most anticipated albums we've ever had within the past 10 to 15 years within the genre, right? And you're just saying, no, that shit's mid. Like people, I think when it comes to such an anticipation, I don't think people even care about whether it's good or not. They're just happy that it's here, right? Like, when you're at a restaurant, mainly an ethnic restaurant, you're waiting for your food. It's been like an hour and a half. You don't even care if it's good or not. Like, you're just like, I just want to fucking eat right now. I think that's what it is with J Hus. And I think because you're just like, yeah, I waited an hour and a half for this, and it is still shit. I'm hungry. I will eat it, but it's yeah. I think that's what got people. I think. Would you agree with that?
In some ways, like underwhelming is the word that I would definitely use. It's like, yeah, like the food's cold, like you can the spices, you can taste a bit of flavor there, but you're like, oh, if only it came fresh.
Yes,
and
yeah,
and then do you know what, that analogy fits so well with the album is because he recorded those songs like donkey years ago. Like a lot of those songs were really, really old. So that's exactly what I felt like. I felt like it's cold now,
Yeah.
A lot of the material on the album, he should have just recorded new stuff. That's a tangent, I guess. But yeah, like I think making certain people realize that was an achievement, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I had people saying, like, yeah, man, like, wasn't that good, man. Could have been better.
Yeah.
And like, I think, yeah, like from my perspective, that's my perspective. But
Mm-hmm.
it's always interesting to hear how, for example, we've spoken about this a lot. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, it's sometimes it's not all about my perspective. I need to hear someone else's, so I
Yeah.
can get out of. I need that other perspective, so I can be like, okay, what is it aligning? Is it not? So that's what I try to do when it comes to that tweet.
And speaking of that, I mean, the best person to get it from was as close to the source as you can get. Because, yeah, I'm a bit of an instigator. I thought this is going to be interesting, right? So then I think a couple of days later, we have a Twitter space, right? And you get TSB, one of the main producers of J Hus and this album, on a space for like a good hour talking rights and lyrical about this album. And I think one thing that people always forget, because again, I'm not going to make this a petty grievances thing, but I think one thing that was quite funny about that thing was eventually we got to the end of the Twitter space and it almost was as if TSB was agreeing with what you said. And, and to be honest, I think that's quite a full circle moment. Like, was that validating for you to be like, okay, no, maybe I do know a thing or two about this genre? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, man. But the fact that, like, I can't remember what it was exactly he said. The agreement part, but it was like
I think we were talking
it was,
about taking risks, right? And then I think he was like, oh,
yeah,
or like in terms of the songs, I think he kind of got to a point where it's like, oh yeah, a lot of these do sound like J Hus songs from Big Conspiracy, and we're like, yeah, that's the point. It doesn't sound like he's evolving. And he's like, I think he kind of agreed in that sense.
yes, that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I think obviously he was a bit sorry. Obviously, he's something he's worked on. You're always going to understand that, but I think he did have some sort of understanding of where you were coming from at a certain
Yeah,
point. Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah. That's another part of what I wrote that I forgot. I said
Mm-hmm.
he didn't take risks in it
Mm-hmm.
in the initial
Mm-hmm.
tweet.
Yes.
And when we brought that up, we did explain how to TSP how no denying was a
Mm-hmm.
risk, um, and stuff like that. And we didn't have anything on that level that was a risk on the new album. And then to hear him agree with that was, I to me that conversation was just perfect music fan discourse.
Mm-hmm.
It was calm. There was no fuss or like screaming and shouting
Mm-hmm.
as it can get,
Yep.
as it usually gets.
Yep.
It was just like a healthy conversation, and we were hearing each other out. And clearly, TSB has an objective mindset as well, but he was able to take in what we were saying and and kind of hear me out and not just see me as a hater,
Mm-hmm.
because what people could have just been like, oh, he's just hating.
Mm-hmm.
But nah, man, like if like I love being a hater, don't get me wrong. Yeah, it's fun. But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to music discourse, I will state opinions, or I can state them in many, many different ways. And
Mm-hmm.
if I can get my point across, that's my mission at the end of the day.
Of
And if you
course.
agree or disagree, calm. But if I made you at least see eye to eye with what I said, you don't even have to agree. But if you can understand where I've come from, then I've done my job.
Of
So
course.
with TSB, I think I just done my job, and then that's me as a writer, innit? That's my job to do
Yeah,
that.
for sure. And again, kind of the last part of it on Twitter, one thing that you've been extremely vocal about, and again, I share the same sentiment with this, where there seems to be, because one thing I did do just to kind of put I guess a header at the start of this conversation, I asked you about whether you thought rap was or hip hop is competitive, and you said yes. One thing I think that's always been a sticking point within the genre and the discussions is that you can't pit artists against each other, or there's no objective goat. And because there's no objective goat, what's even the point? Everyone's gonna have their own personal, and let's be happy if one person says blue and one person says red, and we should never actually come to a discussion of some sort of unified goat. But then for some reason that's allowed in almost every single other discipline or art I've ever seen, right? Like if someone says Basket's the best painter, no one's like, oh, how can you judge paintings, mate? No one ever says that. Like, it's like, okay, yeah, that's your opinion. Maybe, oh, what he did was da-da-da, like, do you know what I mean? Or, do you know what I mean? Like, or for example, even the debate of LeBron and Jordan, who didn't even play in the same era, which is a lot more of an abstract discussion than people give it credit for. People are completely like happy or give themselves full reign to have the discussion. But when it comes to rappers, people act like because it's music, there can't be any sort of objective truth or objective ranking to that. So in terms of like the GOAT rappers, like, yeah, so what what do you feel about that kind of perspective that people are, like, have in terms of like, oh, you know what, there can't be a GOAT, or you can never even have a discussion about a ranking, like let's say album of the year or best artists or within a certain time period. How do you feel about that discourse? And like, why do you disagree with that sentiment?
I think that like when it comes to that stuff, what people can't fathom is that they can't balance the objectivity with the subjectivity, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And I think that's why we have that issue in the scene, because if someone's has an album that's so near and dear to them and they have
Mm-hmm.
it on their all-time list and then this other guy doesn't, you know, it's the feelings that are involved that cloud people's judgment. And that's why in rap it can get so argumentative,
Mm-hmm.
because people are just getting their feelings involved. But you don't have to care that he didn't put that album on there, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the objectives, I think it can be so toxic though. Like when it comes to lists and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, when someone's being fake objective, and I've seen that a lot in the hip hop community, especially on
Yeah.
Instagram, where people are talking about something from an objective lens, but their opinion is just based on the critical acclaim that already exists. You know, like,
Right.
and it's
Yes, I see what you mean.
it's only and it's only centered around that. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not a factor. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this To Pimp a Butterfly, everyone's been saying it's the greatest rap album of all time. I must say the same thing, you know? And I've seen that. And then I've seen people in private be like, I actually don't even like the album that much.
Yeah.
You know, or oh
Happens
like I
all the
prefer
time, by the
this.
way. Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the issue. And I think it takes a skilled person to make a hip hop list that can combine their personal opinion, which is the subjective side, with the objective side, which is knowing if something has great lyricism. What defines great production? You know what defines great production in hip hop because you know the fundamentals of that.
Mm-hmm.
What is the standards for a concept album? What is sequencing supposed to sound like? And if someone's able to do that and they understand those elements, then I think that's why you can get certain lists and they can be good lists. But then again, it's still subjective because what is a good list and what is a bad list? At the end of the day, it's still music opinion.
Yeah.
But I love seeing it. Like I love, you know, I like seeing a top 10 list. Let's say it's top 10 albums, and there's some like left picks in there. You know, maybe not all of it. Like maybe it can be like a 50-50 split or like a 60-40. But like, don't just put the typical stuff. Like show me you have an individual brain as well.
Yeah.
You know, when I see stuff like that, I'm like, okay, that's what I like to see. I don't like to see that fake stuff. And I don't like people just shoving their opinion down people's throats as well. Like, it's too many layers to it.
Yeah, of course. And I think for people to kind of like, for a good reference to what Hamza is saying right now, is that Tyler the Creator interview that everyone loves to kind of harp on about, the one where he's with I think is it Complex or something, where he's kind of sit with the
Rap Radar.
Rap Radar. Sorry, Rap Radar. Yeah, with Elliot.
Yeah,
of course. And it's on to talk about like, yeah, what's your personal and obviously I agree with most of what he says there. I think that's kind of the sentiment of what you're saying here, where I do feel like because people are kind of scared of the critique that could come from what they say, they kind of just take the aggregation of all the popular articles or popular opinions. So it might not be identical to what Rolling Stone do, but it'll be an aggregation of all of them. So it's never inoffensive, right? It's never inoffensive. And I think to me, that's such a cop out. It's such an annoying way to kind of do lists and stuff like that. I think for people, I guess from my perspective, to say there's no objectivity in music, forget hip hop, in music, I think some people really do think it's like, you know, when Bryson Tiller made dough in like his kitchen or something, it's just a mic and there's no one else in the room. Do you know how many people are involved in the making of an album? There's A&Rs, there's creative directors, there's, you know what I mean? There's like a whole team. It's not just someone just rapping to a mic. There's someone telling you about, I think honestly, the amount of people I've met who have told me, oh, you know, before let's say 2018, I used to just put albums on shuffle, not knowing that was a whole job in itself that people took months and months and months and months to do. It's crazy, right? So I think I think all these little elements build up to what you feel is the experience of the album. Like that feeling you get when the album peaks at a certain point or kind of draws you to a certain mood, that's not by accident. There's people by design and like kind of premeditating that as they're putting the songs, albums verses, etc. together. Like this is a real thing. So I think people should just kind of take note of that when they're kind of debating the idea that art can be ranked, because if no art can be ranked, then what's the point of any of this, right? That every review is useless, and I don't think that's necessarily true. So kind of to close this out, I'm gonna kind of reference again. One thing I like to do with the people I have on, I like to reference things they said themselves, and I kind of just turn it back on them because I'm just annoying.
Oh no.
So, like we said, we were just talking about GOAT conversations, right? And then again, you're saying it's a key part of hip hop, and I think the person said, oh, okay, like, so what makes a GOAT person? You said classic projects, impact and influence, lyricism, dominating the lane, and some sort of longevity. I'll say those are the basics if you want to claim someone as a GOAT. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna engineer. Don't worry, man. I'm gonna engineer this for you in a special way. So let's say for each of those categories, so we start one by one. Who would you say is your favorite artist, or the artist who does that the best? So, for example, who does the best at projects? Who has the best impact, influence, lyricism, stuff like that? So let's start with classic projects. Who would you say is your favorite in that lane?
Classic projects. I think my favorite is probably Kendrick there.
Of course.
I think making albums, he knows how to make an album. So, and he's got at least 3 classic albums. So I'll go with him.
Yeah, definitely one of the best discog artists ever, for sure. Impact.
I might go with Drake, you know.
Okay. Firm. Influence.
Influence. Kanye.
Okay. Lyricism.
I know my favorite lyricist. I'm saying should I save him for another category, but I think my go lyricist is Nas, man. So
okay, cool.
I'm gonna go Nas lyricism.
Dominating their lane. So again, within their kind of genre, whatever, who's kind of actually just smashed their lane?
Domination. Dominate. To dominate, I must have said dominate over a long period, right? I'm assuming.
No, so you have longevity as one, but I think you mean like, for example, let's say Future in trap, he's dominated the lane of trap rap, for example.
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah, yeah, good one. Future, man. Dominated.
Okay, cool. And then longevity is
he's
the
still
last
the guy.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, continue.
On Future is like, like he started this trap shit. He's still here, so that's domination, isn't it?
Yeah, that's fair. And yeah, and longevity.
Longevity. I would have said Nas again, but I do want to say someone else. So longevity, man. This is probably the toughest one because everyone has a particular peak. So it's a really tough one. I'll say Andre 3000. Why not?
Yeah. Okay.
I'll say Andre 3000. Even though he's not put out albums, at least on features, he's shown his longevity. He's worked with so many artists, like your feature, not just rappers but R&B stars as well.
Of course. So,
yeah,
that's a good pick.
That's the ultimate rapper for you, man. Look at that.
So kind of rounding out in summary, what is next for Hamza and MicCheque moving forward?
MicCheque, man. Yeah, for me and MicCheque, man. Like you said, the MicCheque journey continues. We're going to be pivoting the type of content we put out on the website, but the socials are definitely going to be more active. There's now a MicCheque TikTok, so there's going to be content on there, both UK and US. But like I said, the ethos is still going to be there. We're still bridging that gap. It's never going to change. So yeah, that's going to be there. The Instagram as well. I'm looking to get more content back up on there as well. So whole different kinds. We're still doing mini reviews. We're still doing like story challenges, just interactive stuff.
Okay.
And then myself just making content really. Getting in front of the camera. So if you see me, in a few clips. You know what I'm saying? You heard it here first. That's gonna be coming through as well. So yeah, man, anything involving talking about the genre we all love, I'm there front and center. So yeah, man, still gonna be making moves throughout the year. Watch this space.
At the end of this interview, is there anyone you like to thank? Is there anyone you like to shout out or say hello to?
We got the Slime Talk boys. Yeah, goated podcast. Check them out, man. Another duo that I love to talk about the genre. Yeah, a few people I said earlier, like Rams Like Dimes, shout them out. Sillah, big up Sillah. Shout out BTB Max as well, man. He makes some good UK rap content as well. Yeah, man. And big up Topz Turntable, bro.
Shukriya.
Yeah. Then what?